All right, so freedom of speech, that's what I'm very passionate about. As a stand-up comedian, I feel that freedom of speech is something that I should cherish. It's something that I should fight for. And it's something that I should never, ever let anyone take away from me. However, we live in a society where things are changing dramatically. A lot of people don't like identity politics, and they think that identity politics is actually taking away our freedom of speech. Now, as a comedian, many of my idols, such as Dave Chappelle, Ricky Gervais, and many others, Joe Rogan, Bill Burr, Patrice O'Neill, they have always used their freedom of speech, their freedom of expression, and the media given to them in a way to make us laugh. But lately, apart from Patrice, rest in peace, lately, these same people have taken their right to do things that are transphobic, that are homophobic. And they justify their expression by saying it's only freedom of speech. Now, how can I judge them? How can I justify what they do? Since I have friends and I have acquaintances who fight with identity politics, that identity politics is actually part of their lives. So how do I manage in a society where I'm supposed to be the one who cherishes freedom of speech, but on the other hand, I got friends who my idols like to point out and say, hey, look at these people, and laugh at them. Now, I've been thinking about what is my duty? What is my right? Do I have the right to justify anything what I say because I have a freedom of speech? No matter how fucked up that shit is? Or can I just learn something from the time that we live in? And I have chosen to learn. I have chosen to take a different path from my idols. I no longer want to use my freedom of speech to justify a shitty joke. I'd rather just face the fact that some of my jokes are shitty, that some of my jokes are transphobic or homophobic, and instead of just saying, well, that's my freedom of speech, I try to change how I do my thing, how I do my comedy, how do I express my own fears and my own life through comedy. I have chosen to learn, but it's very hard. Because in the society that we live in, we tend to take some of the liberties given to us for granted, and then we don't know how to change the way that we live to preserve those rights and to actually include more people into enjoying the same rights that we take for granted. So I've chosen to learn, but yet I don't know how am I able to learn, because I don't have any tools to do comedy which is not homophobic, which is not transphobic, which is not racist. So if there's anyone out there who can help me, apart from Hannah Gadsby, please do contact. Because we need a different way to do comedy. We need new tools that can include more people.
So, one of the questions that I always get when I approach strangers on the street is, you're from where? Why did you come to Finland? But it's not so much, why I came to Finland, but rather Finland came to me. But before I answer any or all of those questions, I have to give you a backstory. So, growing up, I'm not going to tell you where I'm from just yet. Hopefully, by the end of this, you'd have figured it out. But growing up, I always got the sense that there was always something more, something else out there. And I was always gravitated towards very difficult but strong characters who tended to be women, more or less. So while everybody, loved Gloria Estefan, I was all about Madonna. While everybody loved, Naomi Campbell as a model, I always loved Grace Jones because she was so diverse and different, and she followed her own rules. So I think because of that, I tended not to go where everybody else was going or what everybody wanted, but rather what was interesting, what was maybe difficult, what was new, what was untouched, in other words. So in this conversation, the answers vary from like, oh, I came for school, or I have friends here, or it was just easier. But the real answer is so much deeper than that. The real answer is because I came to Finland to express myself and find myself in this beautiful, wildly diverse, maybe not so much in the types of people, but in the thinkings of the people. Your land of opposites, your land of great workers and independent thinking. And I said to myself, I wonder, can I find myself in this place? And I did. And I'm not surprised, but I did. When I came here, the first thing you'll notice when you come to Finland is that it's extremely quiet. It's quiet in a way that if you can't quiet yourself, you can't get your thoughts, you're going to go crazy because you're itching for like some kind of contact or communication. But it's in those moments that you need to just be quiet and listen and say, this is me, embrace yourself for everything that you have. The second thing you'll notice is that Finns are the warmest people on the earth. And I don't say this lightly, because Brazilians are extremely warm. I've come across all nations who, they're friendly, they're outgoing, but when a Finnish person asks you, how are you doing today? They look you in the eye and they stop and they want an answer. They're expecting an answer. And thirdly, I think they believe in your potential. You don't come across too many people who, when you tell them what they're doing, they're like, that's a great idea. Have you heard about this person? Or have you tried this? Or did you look at this? Even months later, you come across somebody else who will say, I just remembered you said that. So I think in just trying to wrap everything up really quickly, what inspires me are strong, independent, difficult, diverse ways of doing things, because it's in the difficulty that we see where the possibilities are. You will never get any progress if something is easy. It's always when you have that kind of, when you grate against when you go against the grain, sorry. So to answer that question, why am I here? I'm here because I just want to find out what I'm made of. How far can I go? Another thing that I love about Finland as well, that makes it so inspiring, it's the landscape. And it's beautiful in a different kind of way, but it's beautiful in the way that it makes you think. It's that closeness to nature that you don't get in so many places. You can literally live, anywhere in Helsinki, more or less, and you're 15 minutes away from the sea. Now, as an island person, I can't tell you how important that is for your mental health, to be able to ponder what lies beyond. I think when you come across when you're looking at differences in people, I think people are really broken down into two categories. You have the first who, they're engulfed by water, and the second who are engulfed by mountains or landlocked. And nothing wrong with being landlocked, but when you come across island folks, they are strange in a way that somehow you cannot box them. They're always striving to get out, to see what's out there, to have something else. And they come across their culture in a concentrated manner. So, when you think about, okay, what are these cultures that are really strong? You look at the States and you say, okay, well, California has a strong sense of place. New York has a strong sense of place. Japan, as a country, has a strong sense of place. All of these are islands because they have a very different way of thinking. I think Finland, even though it's not an island, you're surrounded by so much water. I think that gives you that unique position, at least Finns, that they have the imagination of islanders, but then they have like the roots of people who are landlocked. And these little distinctions make Finland so unique. So it's not, I'm not, it's not a Tory sport ad, I promise you guys, there's no affiliation. But I'm just saying this because as somebody who comes from such a wildly different culture, someone who has studied and worked and lived in the States and different places, I can come to this place and realize all that's there, all that you can get from it. And I think once you appreciate the system and you appreciate how things are done, you know, and you realize that there's something such a relief about knowing that when I've done something, that it's done and it's good. You don't have to second check or third check or wonder, will it get there? Or, oh, it's in God's hands now if you reach the post. You just don't send post where I'm from. You just don't do it. DHL or FedEx. So back to what inspires me. Finland. The different. The walk in the path that you've never done. And I haven't even gotten to my favorite topic yet, which is design. That's really why I'm here. You know, when people talk about the Nordics and they say, oh my God, there's such a great design coming from the Nordics, I'm like, that's true, that's very true. But not all countries are equal in this debate. And as much as I love my Swedish friends and my Norwegian friends and even my Danish friends, the best design comes from Finland. And it's not just the products that come out, it's not just the Alto vase or the Tapiavara chair. It's the mindset that comes from that. And the reason why they have that mindset is because this is beautiful, diverse, different, difficult place. That you have the sea and you have the landlocked. And somehow, you know, you find a way to like put these two opposing forces together and you have something beautiful. That's why I'm here. That's why Finland is for me in a nutshell. And for the record, I'm from Jamaica, island girl, and I came here for Finland to find myself in this lovely, gorgeous place. Thank you.
My mom is a wonderful person, and she's my true role model. She's a music teacher in a kindergarten, and so she made me perform since a very early age. At the age of 3, I could do a nice little child poem in front of a kindergarten group. Then I took it further to the middle school, and I was part of different school plays or presentations in front of the school kids. Then I entered technical university, and it was not very theatrical. So, craving for the stage experience, I started doing sitcom with a wonderful group of people. And honestly, it was a lot of fun. But I never considered public speaking or performing as any kind of skill. I just thought it's my hobby, and I'm just good on stage. Well, my friend, she's a professional actress, and she's done theater academy, participated in numerous plays, musicals, and she also does public performing workshops. So I attended one of the workshops, and a random participant, he just bends over to me and he whispers, "Oh my God, she's natural talent." And I burst laughing, of course, because it takes only, 10 years of hard work to become, a natural talent, right? For me, it's almost the same as if you come to an Ironman winner and then say, "Oh my God, you're just natural in triathlons. You're just so good naturally at all this swimming and biking and then running and everything else." Well, turns out public speaking or performing is a skill. Let's jump back to kindergarten, where my mother trains small kids to do a small concert in front of their parents. She says, yes, naturally, some kids will be better. They will remember better, they will rehearse harder, they will be flawless in the rehearsal. But then when comes the time of the stage, they just sit quietly in the corner and they will never come in front of the audience. Those kids, they can sit in the corner for 2 years. But then once they will gather themselves together, stand in front, and do a perfect performance. It just takes so much time for them to absorb this feeling on the stage and become comfortable. Stage fright. Quite recently, I was going through a very emotional, distressful situation in my life. It was big stress, and I found myself miserable. I couldn't eat well. I couldn't sleep well. As a result, I was very tired. I had some heart pains, and honestly, I was just miserable at all times. And then I realized, wait a moment, isn't it exactly the same thing that I experienced in the short term before going on stage? So I got inspired by this idea, and I did some scientific research here and there. Turns out that the stress we experience, it's exactly the same stress, no matter what the occasion is. Quite interesting. It comes all the way from the cave age. When you come out of the cave and you see a lion hunting you, first, of course, you'll just freeze. But then all your vital systems will shut down, and the heart will start pondering and pumping blood into your legs. So the brain will start sending you the emotion. Run for your life, and everything else can seriously wait right now. Of course, you can run from the stage. But in a very positive scenario, you will make this step into the spotlight and present. And it is scary, even though there is no lion in the audience, right? But why? Why presenting in front of the audience is so frightening? Well, it turns out that being vulnerable, alone, in front of the judgment, delivering the message, it is scary, right? And we want to be the very best of ourselves. We want to do a flawless presentation. And it's okay to be scared. This is something to worry about. How to overcome stage fright? Well, there is no one correct answer to that. But in my experience, you should perform as often as you can. Go perform in front of your friends or family before big audiences. And even though the stage fright lion, it will never go away. It will always be there hunting for you. But with certain practice, you can tame it into a nice little kitty. Well, today I was asked to give a little bit more of a practical advice, and it's really simple. It goes down to really simple steps. First, prepare. Very easy, but prepare not only your content, research your audience, know who you are talking about and talking to. 2, practice. And this comes as a surprise to some people, but it's a very good idea to practice out loud. When your speech is ready, at home, vocalize it, because you will be vocal in the end. And the third advice is, when you go on stage, right before your performance, feel it. Take 2 minutes before the performance, sneak in, and try to feel the space. Try to make yourself a little bit comfortable. So when you're delivering the message, you're confident and you slay. Thank you.